This is a story about what was it like to be an Omaha woman at the height of the Victorian era.
You're watching the Spotlight Network, starring Hollywood's newsman, Logan Crawford.
They now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're sharing the extraordinary true story behind a powerful book. It is called A Warrior of the People. It is written by one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite writers, Joe Starita. It is a powerful biography of Susan La Flesche Picotte, the first Native American doctor in U.S. history. She earned her medical degree in 1889, decades before women could vote and before Native Americans were granted citizenship. Then she devoted her life to caring for her people across a massive rural territory. This is a story of courage, public health, and a trailblazing woman who broke through racial and gender barriers to change lives. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here once again today on Spotlight. We thank the team for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Joe, great to have you back on the show. You're highlighting once again a wonderful Native American hero, so thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for the invitation, for the opportunity to talk about this remarkable woman, because there is nothing like her in the history of the United States. She stands alone in terms of what she accomplished, how she accomplished it, and the odds that were against her when she accomplished it.
Yeah. What made her different? What made her stand out? What made her the woman who in 1889 would graduate medical college when it was unheard of for Native Americans, obviously?
Yeah, in 1890, the year of the Wounded Knee Massacre, there were 104,805 licensed physicians in the United States of America, 4.4% of whom were women. But of that 104,805, only one was a Native American woman.
Wow.
And that was Susan La Flesche, the youngest daughter of the last recognized chief of the Omaha tribe, Joseph La Flesche, who was born in a buffalo hide teepee in the waning weeks of the Civil War, June 15th, 1865, and 24 years later, this woman who had been born in a buffalo hide teepee on the western high plains of Nebraska walked across the stage in Philadelphia to accept her medical degree, becoming the first Native doctor in U.S. history. She was among one of 38 in her class. And those other 37 were very rich women from elegant brownstones in New York and mansions in Philadelphia. They were very wealthy, and they had the best schooling one could provide. But of the 38 in Susan's class, only one, of course, was the valedictorian. And it was the one who was born in an animal skin teepee that graduated number one in her medical school class. She had been surrounded by 4 or 5 very powerful, wealthy white women on the East Coast who could not believe how smart she was, how intelligent and how focused she was. And they circled around her and they got her in to the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania, the only medical college in the world at the time that accepted women in the front door and allowed them to enter the back door with a medical degree.
Wow.
So they got Susan into this college. And when she graduated in 1889, March 14th, 1889, as the valedictorian of her class, these white women from the East Coast begged her, stay here, stay in Boston, stay in Hartford, stay in New York. You can live in a Victorian home with gingerbread trim. You can go to art museums on Saturday and symphonies on Sunday. And Susan loved all of this. She could quote Shakespeare in 5 different languages.
Yeah.
And they appealed to her to stay in this cultural high spot. Susan never gave it a moment's thought. She got the next train back to Omaha. Her father, the chief, picked her up in a buckboard wagon and drove her back to the Omaha reservation, where she would spend the rest of her life devoted in every detail possible to the Omaha people that she loved more than anything else. She she was a force that it's almost impossible to really imagine what she was up against and how she pulled it off just to get through medical school.
Yeah.
Women, there was a famous Harvard doctor in the time Susan was going to medical school who said women can menstruate, but they can't educate. Their bodies aren't designed to do both. They can do one or the other, but they can't do both because their bodies are not designed to do both. And there was a widespread belief in the height of the Victorian era, when Susan was in medical school, that the stress on a woman's body of going to medical school or going to college in general would render her infertile. So they would not, this is what she, this is what she had to overcome as a woman, to say nothing of what she had to overcome as a squaw. And she overcame all of it to the tune of graduating as a valedictorian, rebuffing all of these generous offers to live a cushy life, to go back to this reservation where the first day she arrived back on her beloved Omaha reservation, this 24-year-old woman inherited 1,244 patients scattered across a 1,300 square mile area. Do you know any doctors with 1,200 patients?
No.
No. This 24-year-old woman had 1,244, and she slavishly devoted the rest of her life to taking care of them. She insisted that they put screens on their windows and doors to keep the flies out that were disease-carrying insects who were killing her people. She instructed all of her people to put kerosene in the corners of their homes to kill the eggs of the flies. She banned the communal drinking cup, which had been in existence for centuries. She went to the legislature and demanded that they pass laws keeping the whiskey peddlers off the reservation who were killing her people with alcohol. She started the first library for children on the reservation. She brought in concert pianists on Sunday afternoon to play at her house and invited anyone from the tribe who wanted to come. So if she couldn't go to culture in Boston and Philadelphia and New York, she brought culture to Walt Hill, Nebraska. And as well as getting up at 5 a.m. every morning. And I have all of her diaries, all of her journals. So I know what she did because she was a meticulous diarist. And she would get up at 5 a.m., dead of winter, walk 100 yards, the length of a football field, to the barn, hitch up her two favorite chocolate mares, Pat and Pudge, wrap a buffalo robe around her, and take off on some vague instructions she had been given by a relative. This was before Google Maps.
Yeah.
If you go a mile down Omaha Creek, you'll hit a cottonwood tree, and then go west for 2 miles, and you'll hit a ravine. And then on the top of that ravine, there's a hill. And inside that hill, there will be a 14-year-old girl curled up in a fetal position on a dirt floor, dying of tuberculosis. And this is what Susan did day after day after day. So many of her diary entries ended the same way. Went to bed supperless, too tired to eat. She would get up the next day and do the same thing. A truly remarkable woman. And what this story has to offer the American people is our literary landscape is awash in portraits of Native people, almost exclusively from a male perspective.
Yeah.
We know about Custer and Crazy Horse. We know about Sitting Bull and Geronimo. We know about Buffalo Bill and Buffalo Soldiers. So we see Native people refracted historically through an almost exclusive male lens. But this is not that story. This is a story about what was it like to be an Omaha woman at the height of the Victorian era, navigating the collision between manifest destiny and Native cultures. How do you become a doctor of Western medicine in a society when white male America declares that the stress of college will render you infertile?
Yeah.
How does it feel to be alone on the prairie, saving lives and wondering if you will die an old maid? Susan was a strong Native woman leaning in a century before that term existed. And that's what this story has to tell us. The remarkable heroics of somebody, the Omaha language, the word Omaha means against the current.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of a nice irony that she was Omaha because she spent her entire adult life swimming against the current. And what a difference she made for her people.
In some ways, she was effectively the chief of her people, right?
Yeah, yes, she brought them things. She brought them a kind of optimism and health that they had never had before because the white doctor that served them never showed up. That's how Susan became a doctor. When she was an 8-year-old girl, 8 years old, she was sitting in the room of an elderly woman who was dying. And they sent for the white doctor 3 different times, and each time he said he was on his way. And when the sun came up that morning, this little 8-year-old girl watched as this elderly Omaha woman died this brutal, painful death all alone in her home. And this 8-year-old girl named Susan La Flesche decided there and then that she would do whatever it took to become a doctor, return to her reservation, and spend the rest of her life helping her people so none would ever die like the woman she saw that morning. And she did that. She did things that were impossible to do for a Native woman. She built the first hospital that ever existed on any reservation in the United States. And she raised all of the money herself. She built a modern hospital about 8 blocks from her house without a single tax dollar.
Wow.
Yeah. Tell me how many hospitals have been built on Native reservations without a single tax dollar.
Yeah, probably none ever since. Let me ask you this. You describe her as both fragile and indomitable, and a lot of her work was physical. She actually used to have to ride from location to location on horseback, right?
Yes, all the time, all the time. Let me tell you one story that illustrates exactly what you just said. There was this 14-year-old girl who was dying of malaria. And Susan would get up at 5 a.m., walk to the barn, get her team, Pam and Pudge, the horses hitched up, get in the wagon, 20 below zero, according to her diary, and she would ride 10 miles, 10 miles in the sub-zero weather to this girl's house, and she would treat her, and then she would get back in the buggy and spend the rest of the day going to see 2 or 3 other families, finally making it home around 6 o'clock, at which point she would cook an enormous meal, get a sled, put the meal on the sled, tie the sled to the back of her buggy, and go back to that house 10 miles away where she had started the day and feed the whole family, and then spend the night hugging this 14-year-old girl who was dying. And she did that every day for 2 weeks until the girl died.
Amazing. And
That's
10 miles by horse and buggy is an arduous journey. It's not like 10 miles in your car. It's completely different.
And in sub-zero weather.
Yeah, in sub-zero weather. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think her legacy will be? What do you want her legacy to be? What do you want readers, especially young readers, female readers, Native American readers, to feel, to experience, to remember after they read your account of her life?
Yeah, I want them to believe, in a sense, what Susan believed. Susan believed that the purpose of life was not to try and avoid pain and suffering because that was impossible. She believed that the purpose of life was to find a purpose and then spend the rest of your life trying to fulfill that purpose. And that's exactly what she did. And that's the message that she wanted to leave to the children of the reservation that she had built the first library for. Don't,
Yeah.
don't try to avoid pain and suffering. Find your purpose in life and then let nothing stop you in achieving that purpose, in getting the ball and crossing the goal line. Don't let stereotypes stop you. Don't let racism stop you. Don't let sexism stop you. You find your dream, you find your goal, and you do whatever it takes to accomplish that goal. That's very much the lesson that she wanted to leave, and she did because
Absolutely.
the amazing thing that has happened is that more than 110 years after this hospital opened, and it had gone to seed. When this amazing group of Nebraska physicians and architects and others who adore the story of Susan La Flesche, when they decided to rehabilitate this hospital that opened on January 8, 1913, the one that Susan had raised $9,000 for, not a single tax dollar, it had deteriorated to the point when they started rehabbing it 2 years ago. The only inhabitants of the hospital were a family of raccoons living in the attic.
Wow.
So this amazing group of doctors and architects and others, they raised millions of dollars and they have rehabbed this hospital.
Wow.
And now it is a shining star on the Omaha reservation. It is operational, it is functional. The second floor is a museum to Susan, and the first floor is a modern hospital.
Right.
And that will be the legacy. Find what you want to do, find your dream, and don't let anything stop you. And
Great
if I,
advice, a great message, Joe. Joe, before we leave you today, would you like to see this book turned into a film?
yes, I would love
Yeah.
to see this book turned into a film. I would love to have Chloe Zhao, who
Hmm.
just won the Academy Award for Hamnet,
Yep.
do this story because she has done movies on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And she is very, very fascinated and very comfortable with Native American culture and telling the stories from a Native perspective. So I'm going to try and get this book in her hands, and I think that she would really be moved by the story.
Yeah.
Do we have time for me to read one paragraph?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh, this is a paragraph that appeared in the local newspaper, the Walt Hill Times,
Hmm.
and it was written the day after her death by
Okay.
her best friend, who was the village attorney, and his name was Harry Keefe. And
Hmm.
he wrote a memorial to his dear, dear friend, Susan La Flesche, that appeared in the Walt Hill Times the day after her death. And this is the concluding paragraph of what her dear friend had to say. We are confronted here with a character rising to greatness and to great deeds out of conditions which seldom produce more than mediocre men and women, achieving great and beneficent ends over obstacles almost insurmountable, Keith wrote. In her death, the Indians lose their best and truest friend. The community and the state sustains an irreparable loss. And there is ended one of the most fruitful, unselfish, and useful of lives.
Wow. It's a beautiful sentiment. It's a beautiful tribute to her and her life. And it
Yes.
certainly was well earned, well deserved. Joe, magnificent work on this interview today, of course, and of course on this book as well, which is the basis of this interview. It's an incredible story. Too few people know about Susan La Flesche Picotte, and her story is worth reading about. The name of the book where you can read about her story is called A Warrior of the People. Susan La Flesche's life proves that one determined person can break barriers and uplift an entire community through service and courage. Joe, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for your comments, which were very much on the money. Everything you said in relation to Susan, spot on.
I appreciate that, Joe. And right back at you. Wonderful work here today. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time.